I never imagined I'd sacrifice everything for family, but then I fell in love with her. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun was setting, casting a fiery glow over the horizon. I stood there, heart racing, as the world blurred around me. Ella. Her name echoed in my mind. I was drawn to her like a moth to a flame. It was wild, reckless. She had this mysterious pull. The laugh that could shatter my worries, eyes that glimmered with secrets. But that day the air felt heavy. I could sense it before I even stepped inside my house. I was already running late. My hands trembled as I opened the door, the creak cutting through the tense silence. My mom sat on the couch, her face pale and lined with worry. "Where have you been?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I swallowed hard, the lump forming in my throat like a stone. "Just took a walk." But the quiet in the room told a different story. I could feel the wrongness in every corner. My dad's chair was empty, the dinner he promised us sat cold on the table. "Your father," she started but paused, tears brimming in her eyes. "He's in trouble. Big trouble." My heart dropped. I felt it crack. "What do you mean? Is he okay?" No answer. Just a tear rolling down her cheek, silencing my world. The weight of my family's struggles suddenly pressed against my chest. My love for Ella swirled in the thoughts. I wanted to run to her, hide away from this chaos. But my family needed me. Things spiraled. The whispers of debt, desperation, all collapsed around me like a broken dam. My chest felt tight, like an iron vice. I longed to scream. I could see my family unraveling, and yet Ella's face lingered in my mind like a lifeline. A choice loomed before me, sharp and jagged. Dive into my family's mess or run to the grace of love. I clenched my fists, breath coming in ragged bursts. I needed to decide. My phone buzzed, its screen lighting up with a message from her. "Want to meet? I need to talk." My heart raced. I glanced at my mom, the anxiety etched in her features, the shadows of my father's troubles lurking like specters. Just then, the front door flew open. A man barged in, his eyes wild, desperation etched across his face. "We have to go. Now." The room froze. My heart pounded in chaos. I looked from the stranger to my mom. Their faces mirrored pure terror. "Who are you?" I barely managed to whisper. "Your father. He's in danger." Everything crashed around me. What danger? I needed answers. But as the stranger pulled me toward the door, I could only think of Ella. My love. My choice. And suddenly, the world faded. The looming question hung heavy in the air. What was I willing to risk? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The cold night air enveloped me as the weight of the stranger's words settled in my chest like a stone. I glanced back at my mom, who stood frozen in disbelief, her hand trembling as she clutched the arm of the couch. I wanted to reach out to her, to comfort her and tell her everything would be okay, but all I could see was the blur of uncertainty in her eyes, reflecting my own dread. "Please, we have to move. They could be coming for him any second," the man urged, his voice frantic. A quick nod from me was all it took for him to grab my wrist tightly and lead me outside into the darkness. My heart raced, pounding against my ribs as we sprinted down the street, the shadows swallowing us whole. "Who are you?" I managed to choke out, trying to catch my breath. "I'll explain later," he shot back, urgency lacing his tone. "We just need to get to a safe place. Your father, he's mixed up with some dangerous people." My mind spun. How could all of this be happening? The weight of my responsibilities was cemented to my shoulders, but the thought of Ella remained buried in the back of my consciousness, battling for breath. I could no longer hear the sweet melody of her laughter, only the echoes of her waiting for me, unaware of the tempest brewing within my family. The man finally slowed as we approached an old garage, dark and abandoned, the kind that spoke of forgotten dreams. He pushed the creaky door open, and as I stepped inside, the scent of rust and despair invaded my nostrils. "You should call your mom," he said, his tone softening just a fraction. "She needs to know where you are." Nervous fingers brushed against the screen of my phone, my thoughts a jumbled mess. How could I explain this to her? Should I even mention Ella? I took a deep breath, closing my eyes for a moment to collect myself, willing the dread to fade. As I dialed home, the ringing in my ears contrasted sharply with the emptiness around me. My mother picked up quickly, her voice shaky but steady enough for me to feel a thread of hope, a thread I desperately needed. "Where are you? What is happening?" she asked, her worry spilling out. "I'm okay, Mom. It's. I hesitated, not wanting to plunge her deeper into panic. "I'll explain everything later." "But Dad, is he safe? Did you hear from him?" There was a long pause. "No, honey, he hasn't come home. I'm so scared." "Mom, listen. You need to stay strong. I'll figure things out. Please trust me. I just want you home." Her voice broke, and I could almost visualize the tears streaming down her pale cheeks, choking on the worry for my father and me. "Stay inside and lock the doors. Please just come back," she begged, and in that moment, guilt weighed more heavily than ever before. I wasn't just forsaking my own heart, I was risking hers too. With a heavy heart, I ended the call, a fresh wave of conflict crashing over me. The man was waiting, tapping his fingers nervously against the wall. "Time is ticking. We need to move." "I know a place where we can hide," he said, desperation creeping back into his voice. But just then, a small flicker of light caught my eye from outside the garage. I stepped toward the door, peering through the gap just as a silhouette appeared, cutting across the dim street lit by a flickering lamp. I squinted, hope igniting in my chest. It was Ella. "Why are you here?" I whispered in disbelief, my heart swelling. "First I thought something was wrong," she said, eyes wide, scanning the dim interior of the garage before settling on me. "Then I got a text," and the man shifted uncomfortably, the tension in the air palpable. "You need to leave," he said firmly. "No." I shot back, taking a step toward Ella, urgency bursting forth. This didn't compute. She didn't belong here with the chaos of my family's troubles. "Ella, it's dangerous." She shook her head, resolve no less formidable. "I'm not leaving without you." Just then, the harsh sound of tires screeched to a halt outside the garage, the familiar, echoing growl of an engine that sent shockwaves through me. The air thickened with tension as I shared a quick glance with the man, and a silent understanding passed between us. "Go," he shouted, but the weight of the moment pinned me in place. Could I bring Ella into this world of turmoil? But there was something in her eyes, determination, strength that filled me with hope. But as the door rattled, a voice came from outside, a voice I recognized all too well. "Get out of the car. You know what you owe." Panic surged through me as I realized the unthinkable. The danger was closer than I'd ever imagined. The stakes had just been raised. In that heartbeat, I was presented with a choice that would shape the course of my life. Ella could see it reflected in my eyes, the urgency to escape crashing against the yearning to protect those I loved. "Come with me now," I urged, grabbing her hand. The door rattled yet again, sending my heart racing. "I can't lose you too." Tension clung to the air as we took a step toward an uncertain escape, the shadows behind us growing darker by the second, echoing the question that lingered: how much was I willing to sacrifice to keep my family and my love safe? The door creaked ominously as I pulled Ella closer, the weight of the moment painfully heavy. The man at my side cast a wary glance towards the entrance, his jaw clenched as the voice outside demanded compliance. I could feel my heart pounding against my ribs, thrumming with fear and desperation. "Do you trust me?" I whispered to Ella, my voice barely more than a breath, but I needed her to understand. She nodded slowly, her eyes searching mine for certainty, but all I could offer was the flicker of hope clinging to my resolve. As the voices from the street grew louder, I tightened my grip around her hand and took a step into the darkness of the garage. "Run!" the man shouted, lightning striking through the tension. In an instant, we dashed into the night, hearts racing as we sprinted towards the alley behind the building. The shadows swallowed us, their embrace both terrifying and protective. Every breath felt like a new fight as we navigated the dimly lit path, the echoing voices of the outside world receding into raised whispers behind us. "Why are you doing this?" Ella asked breathlessly, her legs finding rhythm beside mine, determination lighting her face. I could hardly meet her gaze. The truth felt heavy on my tongue. "Because if I don't, I could lose you," I breathed, the words punctuated by the sharpness of dread. A flicker of confusion passed over her features. "But you're risking everything. Your dad, your mom." "I know," I interrupted, pain glimmering in my chest. "But I can't let you go. I won't survive that." Just then, a sound broke through the night, the unmistakable crack of a stick snapping beneath the weight of someone lurking behind us. A jolt of pure fear shot through me. "We need to hurry," I urged, glancing back long enough to see a dark figure silhouetted against the moonlight that we rushed through the alley, the world narrowing down to the swift beat of our hearts, raw and vulnerable in the face of growing danger. Ahead lay the main street, bustling with life. Vehicles moved in lazy procession, oblivious to our plight, but the noise felt foreign, dissonant amid our racing thoughts. "Over there." Ella pointed toward a cluster of parked cars, the dim light from nearby street lamps painting them in shades of gray. "We can hide behind those." Instinct kicked in, and we darted towards the vehicles, collapsing against the cold metal. Ella's presence was a balm, but the anxiety that surged like a tidal wave threatened to pull us under. "Do you think they saw us?" she whispered, her breath hitching as the shadows danced around us. I shrugged as I tried to still my racing heart. "I don't know. But we can't stick around to find out," I said, my voice cracking. Suddenly, fear blossomed in my chest anew. "We need to get back to your house. If we split up, I'll worry too much, and I can't wait." Ella's face paled, the reality of our situation dawning on her. "They could be waiting for us there. I can't let them find you." She silenced me with a firm grip on my arm, her gaze fierce. "We have to talk about this. You need to think. Is going home worth the risk?" It felt like a knife cutting through me. I opened my mouth to argue further, but the sound of footsteps echoed farther down the alley. "No," I said instinctively, pulling her deeper into the shadows. "Whatever happens, we stick together. I won't let anything happen to you." Before she could respond, I risked another glance from behind the car. My stomach dropped as I recognized the hulking figure of a man I had seen before, a friend of my father's, but the kind of friend that sent chills crawling down my spine. He was here to settle debts, and no amount of words would calm the storm he wrought. "We need to move. Now." I backed away, leading Ella into the next alley over, which twisted and turned like a dark labyrinth of uncertainty. My mind raced between possibilities: fleeing to a safe haven, fighting back, or the terrifying notion of surrender. But that ultimatum held deeper consequences, shadows that loomed larger than just my life but Ella's as well. And the heavy burden of my family, especially my father's reckoning, hung above us like the sword of Damocles. Just then, Ella halted, yanking my arm slightly. I turned to her, confusion evident. "What are you doing?" Her expression shifted, a mix of courage and dread. I think I can help, she said, breathless determination spiraling from her words. I have an idea, just trust me. She took a deep breath, scanning the alley as if searching for a hidden door, but I couldn't grasp what she was contemplating. My heart raced at the thought of her putting herself in danger again, but before I could voice my concern, Ella pulled out her phone. No. Don't, but she was already dialing, her resolve unwavering. The call connected, and I could hear the faint sound of the line ringing, her jaw set tight as she whispered into it. My stomach lurched at the potential fallout. If she called the wrong person, the shadows would close in on us, trapping us amid a whirlwind of secrets. Please be careful, I urged, inching closer, desperate to shield her even in this uncertain moment. As the phone rang, I could only watch, torn between the need to protect her and the chance that leap could lead us toward our escape. As she uttered a familiar name into the phone, a nerve-wracking hope flickered behind her anxious eyes, a hope I feared to embrace too fully. But when Ella hung up, something in her expression shifted, an edge of fear entwined with something else. The number was blocked, she whispered, her voice trembling with the weight of recognition. They know we're here. They know everything. Panic seized me, my mind reeling as the implications hit. Just as we had thought we were breaking free, the very ground we stood on felt ready to give way beneath. In that moment, my heart plummeted, and with it, clarity pierced the fog of uncertainty. I realized the stakes were even higher, not just my life, or Ella's, but all that my family had built, the fragile bonds of love, now dangled by a thread. And as nightmares crept closer, I braced myself against the brutal truth: there was no escape from the family that haunted me, but was I any closer to saving the one love I couldn't bear to lose? The moment stretched out, heavy and aching, as footsteps approached once more. My heart raced, panic rising, our choices tethered together, riding on the cusp of a revelation neither of us was prepared for. Get ready, I whispered, my resolve hardening. We stood together, less as lovers and more as soldiers preparing for an unwarranted battle. But in this fight, would we emerge as victors or merely another casualty of a war we never asked to wage? The weight of the tension in the alley felt suffocating, each breath I took was tangled with fear, uncertainty, and an unshakable commitment to protect Ella at all costs. The footsteps grew louder, echoing off the damp walls and approaching with an inevitability that made my skin crawl. It was a sickening reminder that we were being hunted, and I could feel the cold grip of panic tightening around my heart. I can't let them take you. I won't let that happen, I breathed to Ella, trying to quell the rising dread that threatened to engulf us both. But the look on her face was unsettling, torn between her own fear and the courage she was summoning. Then we have to think, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. We can't panic, or we won't make it through this. I forced myself to nod, though the words barely registered. My mind was racing with scenarios that felt cruelly like endings rather than beginnings. What if I failed her? The thought clawed at my insides, gnawing at my confidence. Just then, the darkness split apart as a figure emerged at the end of the alley. He was tall, with a wide stance and an oak-like presence, casting a long shadow that loomed over us. My heart sank as I recognized him, not a friend of my father's but rather a man named Malcolm, his reputation as jagged as the knife I feared he carried with him. Looking for someone? He sneered, his voice dripping with malice as he took a step toward us. I instinctively pulled Ella behind me, the instinct to shield her kicking in with a ferocity I had never known before. Stay back, I warned, my voice firm but trembling, torn between the impulse to fight and the instinct to flee. Brave move, kid, Malcolm chuckled with a twisted grin. But you're in way over your head. I can't imagine those debts sitting too well with your old man. It's a shame he raised such a weakling. Each word was like a hammer, forging insecurities into fears. The breath I held felt like a tidal wave, pushing against me. Yet, amid the emotional chaos, I felt Ella's hand cling tighter to my back, a spark of courage lighting within our shared despair. What do you want from us? I snapped, trying to channel my fear into defiance. Malcolm stepped closer, the menace in his smile more visceral than ever. Just a little chat. Your father said you might be looking for help, and let us be honest, it's a slippery path from here. All those choices you thought gave you power. They'll only lead you to ruin. It stung, his words echoing the doubts I was already harboring. I had led us into this situation. How had I allowed myself to think that spontaneity could negate the shadows looming over our lives? But I couldn't afford to fall apart. Not now. Not when she was behind me, her very essence shining as a beacon of hope in the encroaching darkness. Leave us alone, Ella said, her voice steadied by the fire blooming within her. You don't scare me. For a moment, Malcolm seemed taken aback, his confidence faltering just enough for me to sense the power we could wield. I felt the shift in our dynamic, she was right beside me, as fierce and unyielding as ever. Is that so? He asked, amusement twisting his features. How much do you really know about your beloved boyfriend's family, huh? Ella's face paled, but before I could react, he leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. That father of his? He's got a lot of enemies. Maybe more than you think. It's not just debts he's juggling. There are lives at stake, including yours. A silence fell over us, fractured only by the weight of his words sinking into our hearts. I could see Ella processing the truth buried within his threat, the fear reflecting in her eyes, fear for both of us. How do you know that? I demanded, frustration surging in my chest, trying to maintain control over my emotions that threatened to erupt. Malcolm smirked, reveling in our discomfort. That's not for you to know, kid. Just remember, everyone has a price. And if you're smart, you'll know when to bow out. In that moment, as shadows closed in and tension wrapped around us like a vice, an unthinkable idea lodged in my mind, desperate yet liberating. Perhaps we needed to turn this situation back to our advantage. Ella, we can't show fear, I whispered hurriedly. We can use this to our benefit. I'm not sure how yet, but we can't give in or show weakness. Her gaze met mine, a cocktail of anxiety and determination swirling within the depths, and I felt my heart swell at her unwavering spirit, igniting a flicker of rebellion against the odds stacked so heavily against us. There was something greater to lose here than just our safety, it was about freedom, love, even hope. All right then, she said, her voice steadying as the defiance returned. What's next? But before I could respond, the sound of sirens sliced through the night, cutting across our desperate conversation. The red and blue lights began to illuminate the alley, painting over the grit with anxious hope. Malcolm's face twisted into a snarl. Time's up, kids. You're not the only ones looking for a way out. He moved to dart away, but something in my gut pulled at me. Wait! I shouted suddenly, my own need overtaking the fear. You know something, don't you? Where there's smoke, there's fire, and I bet you're caught in the middle of it. He paused, glancing back, a hint of caution flickering in his eyes. But our moment flickered like a candle in the wind, and as I moved to step forward, I caught a glimpse of someone emerging from the shadows behind him. She looked familiar, draped in shadows yet unmistakable, the very face that haunted my dreams. It was Maya, a long-lost friend from the past, someone who shouldn't have been here. My heart thundered, emotions colliding in a dizzying whirl. Had I ever truly managed to escape my family's grip? Run! I shouted to Ella, recognizing the urgency, but my words were swallowed by the chaos unraveling around us. Just as the officers began pouring into the alley, it felt as though everything froze, the confrontation, the decisions, the moment. And in this unexpected twist of fate, with everything unraveling, I couldn't help but wonder what revelations Maya held, and whether they would set us free or drag us deeper into a web of floods and deceit. The blare of sirens was a surreal symphony, pulling me from the clutches of fear, but it was Maya's presence that threw me into turmoil. Christ, how was she here? Memories of laughter and stormy nights beneath starry skies fluttered through my mind, but they were quickly overshadowed by the shadow of danger we now faced together. Maya? I breathed, disbelief catching in my throat as she stepped out of the darkness, her eyes betraying a mix of confusion and recognition. Ella's grip on my waist tightened, her concern palpable. I could feel her body tense next to mine, sensing the history that wrapped around Maya and me like an old, frayed blanket. But this wasn't the time for memories, it was a moment writhed in urgency. "Are you okay?" Maya whispered urgently, pushing back locks of hair that had fallen into her eyes, her concern astoundingly real. "I saw you and I had to come. Why were you following me?" I asked, my voice sharper than intended, partly frustration, partly the flickers of hope teetering precariously on a knife's edge. "I wasn't," she replied, her brows furrowing, sincerity pouring through. "I thought I saw someone suspicious." "Are you two in trouble?" "Run!" I shouted again, as I felt the heat of Malcolm's threat still looming. I didn't have time to delve into the complexities of Maya's sudden appearance or the strands of our past. "Stop!" Malcolm roared, his sneer twisting into rage as he caught the glint of uniformed officers edging into the alley. "You don't know what you're getting into." But what did I know? My heart raced, caught between the urgent need to protect Ella, the swirling vortex of feelings for Maya, and the ever-pressing danger of Malcolm's looming presence. Maya stepped toward me, eyes narrowing as she sized up Malcolm's dangerous mindset. "You're in this too, aren't you?" she accused, her voice steady despite the rising tension. "You think you can intimidate them into submission?" "Back off, sweetheart," Malcolm warned, eyeing her with contempt. "You're out of your depth." Before I could protest, Malcolm grabbed a knife from his belt, its cold glimmer snapping any remaining thread of safety. Ella gasped, a soft huddle of fear against my side. Heart racing, I felt the world shrink into a focus. Ella's safety, my loyalty to a friend lost in turbulent waters, and a man who embodied all the darkness I had tried to escape. "Listen, Malcolm," I demanded, my raging pulse echoing like a drum in my ears. "You're not going to hurt her. Not today." But just as I clutched that faint thread of courage, sirens screeched louder, drawing closer, and as I glanced past Malcolm, the officers poured into the scene, their presence an unexpected blessing. A cascade of flashing lights filled the alley, illuminating the dark corners that cradled secrets and hidden truths. "Police! Put down the weapon!" An officer shouted, voice cutting through the tension as they aimed their guns at Malcolm. In a heartbeat, his facade cracked, eyes darting toward escape like a cornered animal. "I'll end this my way." He spat, eyes ablaze with fury. "You'll be sorry for this." And he turned, dashing down the alley, desperation propelling him forward. "Maya, Ella, stay close," I called, urgency flooding my veins as I gestured for them to follow. We moved as one, racing ahead of the armed officers, full of the momentum that pulsed like adrenaline through our bodies. "We have to split up," I urged, my thoughts racing ahead of me with each pounding footstep. "It'll confuse him." "Ella, take Maya and head toward the street." "What about you?" Ella asked, voice trembling, but I saw the fire of determination reflecting in her eyes, battling against the fear. "I'll draw his attention. Just be safe. Please." "No." Maya insisted, grabbing my arm, deep concern etched on her face. "You can't just no time." I snapped, spilling words that felt heavy with the weight of my own resolve. "Just trust me. You both have to go." With a desperate glance, I pushed them toward the street ahead, knowing the impending confrontation with Malcolm was unavoidable. I didn't know if I'd be able to protect both of them while facing him down. The odds felt impossibly stacked against me. As they dashed away, I took in a deep breath just as the piercing collision of sirens sped closer, mingling with the chaos blooming in my heart. Bolting to the side and behind an old dumpster, I peered around, watching as the officers continued their pursuit. Suddenly, I felt something cold and hard against my side. I turned and saw Malcolm lurking at the corner, his face contorted with rage, the knife gleaming ominously in the half-light. "This isn't over," he hissed, eyes wild, filled with a manic energy that sent a chill down my spine. You think you've won? You know nothing at all about who you're dealing with. Just let her go. I shouted, my own voice ringing with conviction despite the uncertainties that churned within. But he laughed, an unsettling sound that echoed into the darkness. It's never just about her. You really should look closer into your family's history before you start playing hero. The interviews, the debts' lives, past and present, all tied together. I surged forward, throwing caution to the wind. What do you mean? But as I spoke, a flick of horror painted across his face, his eyes gathering recognition as he gritted his teeth, stepping back as though preparing to run again but now caught off balance, his future a tangled mess of threats and secrets. And suddenly, that hopeless future he hinted at loomed before me like an ominous storm, one that wouldn't just catch Malcolm in its wake but would drown the lives of everyone I cared about. Your time will come, he snarled before scrambling away down the alley, uncertainty grasping at my every certainty, fear racing between heartbeats. I stood frozen, knowing I had to make a choice: pursue him or regroup with Ella and Maya. My heart still pounded, potent with dread as the whisper of impending choices loomed over me like a dark cloud, but that was the crux of it. I could no longer ignore the warning in his voice just as the sirens drew ever closer. I needed to find out how deep the ties ran. How far was I willing to go for family? What was I prepared to risk, not just for them, but for love? As I soared back toward the chaos of sirens, the path of answered questions drew nearer, a heavy weight pulling me into darkness and light. But one thing was certain, the reckoning had only just begun. As the echoes of sirens faded into the distance, the breath of the city pulsed through the alley, thick with danger and unresolved emotions. I took a moment to steady myself, to let my racing heart settle into some semblance of coherence. I was left with a cavernous mixture of worries swirling deep in my chest. I had pushed Maya and Ella away in the frantic heat of the moment, convinced it was the right thing to do. But with Malcolm's parting words still ringing in my ears, I felt an ominous shadow stretching over us all that I turned, half expecting to see them, half fearing the unknown that awaited me. I couldn't shake the feeling that Malcolm's threats were layered, each one peeling back another dark truth about my family, about myself. I had long buried the past under a veneer of hope, but now it felt as though it was clawing its way back to the surface, demanding to be seen and understood. With the alley now devoid of threats, I questioned if I could simply return to the street where I'd last seen Maya and Ella, my resolve an alloy of anxiety and determination. I hurried through the narrow passage, moving with purpose, when I caught a glimpse of movement further down. My heart quickened, anticipation underpinning each rush of blood through my veins. Maya! I called out, panic rising as I pushed through shadowed doorways and crooked corners. Each resonating silence from the city felt like a heartbeat waiting to hear an answer that wouldn't come. But then, through the haze of night, I saw them, Maya and Ella, standing together, their faces illuminated under a flickering streetlight, their breaths puffing in clouds of worry. James! Maya's voice struggled against an unexpected wave of relief, her silhouette framed by golden luminescence. And in that moment of reunion, something unfurled within me, a tether to something bigger than just survival. Are you both all right? I asked, my words tumbling out in a rush, the worry I felt for them rising like bile in my throat. We're fine, Ella said, but her eyes betrayed her. They brimmed with the weight of fear, the kind that birthed something fragile in a world where danger danced so closely. My heart ached to see her like this. The vibrant girl I'd known crumpled at the edges by shadows not of her own making. Maya stepped closer, her hand reaching for mine, a simple gesture laced with complexity. What happened back there? She eyed me intently, her gaze searching for answers, but I was painfully aware that I had none to give. I was fumbling with tangled threads of my past and hopes for the future, and now the very air between us felt pregnant with unspoken words. Malcolm, he knows things, I murmured, gripping her hand tighter, as if anchoring myself in this moment would stave off the storm brewing in my chest. He mentioned my family. This isn't just about you or me anymore. It goes deeper, and I don't know how much danger we're all in. But before she could respond, a sudden cry broke through the quiet night, drawing our attention down the street. A woman stood on her balcony, wailing something about a curse and loss, her hands clutching a dusty old photograph. The image was illuminated by the downcast glow of the streetlight, but as I strained to see, the wind rustled through the branches, abruptly rendering it indistinguishable from shadows that my heart sank. In city despair, stories were often interwoven, and this one wound its way so closely to our own, echoing Malcolm's words like an ominous chant. "There's a history here," I whispered, the meaning unfolding inside me like a blossom reluctant to bloom. "We can't just walk away from it." Ella took a step closer, her expression despondent. "What do you mean?" she asked, but it was a question already leading me spiral deeper into the uncertain. "Maybe we ought to look into what Malcolm was hinting at," I replied, the weight of decision dragging at my shoulders. "It feels like there is something rising beneath the surface, pulling us in, and we can't comprehend the danger without understanding the past." Maya's concern sharpened, casting worry over her features. "But we don't even know what we're up against," she cautioned, the dim light catching the shimmer of her fear. "What if we uncover something that puts us in even worse danger?" I felt a surge of desperation. Part of me, the part that craved certainty, wanted to shield her from all the dark corners of my life, while another part, the part drawn into the chaos of fate, burned with resolve. My ancestors had run from their pasts, but perhaps I was meant to confront it, to redefine our legacies rather than be defined by them. "Then we face it together," I said finally, shifting my grip to cradle Maya's hand, my voice steady in the tempest of emotions swirling around us. "We may not know it all, but I can't afford to run anymore. Not from him, not from what sacrifices may come." Just then, the wailing woman's cries became clearer, piercing through the darkness, resonating with a raw pain that caused my chest to tighten. Against the thin separation of fate, I felt pulled toward her suffering, as if an invisible thread tied us together, a realization clawing at my soul. And just as I turned back to the two of them, ready to lay out our dysfunctional battle plan, Ella's eyes widened in alarm, her breath catching. I spun around, scanning the street, the night suddenly alive with shadows. Emerging from the deepest dark, figures began to materialize, eyes gleaming with intent. A familiar face edged into view, eyes dark and daunting, the last person I expected to see. "Did you really think you could escape?" Malcolm's voice echoed through the crowd forming behind him, their silhouettes suggesting a throng teetering on the edge of chaos. It was dread and disbelief that coursed through me, and in that instant, every decision hung in the balance, the curtain drawn aside, leaving us exposed not just to evil but to whatever deliberate unraveling was set to chase our way. I was ready to sacrifice it all for family, for love. Yet, the core revelation and its dire implications clanged within me like a bell tolling fate. As darkness encircled us, I couldn't help but wonder, what would it cost to keep the people I loved safe? And would love be enough when the true horrors of family legacies were laid bare? The night twisted into a deeper black, each heartbeat echoing the inevitability of confrontation. Malcolm stood, a vulture against the murky backdrop, his presence crawling beneath my skin like an infestation. As the figures gathered behind him, I felt the weight of dread pressing against my ribs, squeezing the air from my lungs. This wasn't just a threat, it was a crucible for everything I held dear. "Maya, Ella, get behind me," I urged, although powerlessness swept over me like a tide. I felt like a puppet caught in strings frayed and twisted beyond recognition. Every instinct screamed for me to flee, yet I remained rooted, the promise of protection pulling me back. Malcolm stepped forward, a predator reveling in the chase. "You've left quite a mark, James. But you've gone and dug up the past, haven't you? I wouldn't be here otherwise." His eyes locked onto mine, a sinister glow promising that every revelation would bring only more pain. "What do you want?" I spat, my voice steady despite the thunder of blood rushing in my ears. Uncertainty pulsed through me, but I would be damned if I let him see it. "You know what I want. The truth. That's a family trait, isn't it? We search for answers even when they cut deeper than knives." The corner of his mouth curled, taunting me with unspoken memories I wished were nothing more than shadows. With each word, my heart heaviened, sinking within me like a stone. The past was a fruitful garden for Malcolm's bitterness, stemming from bloodlines I'd long sought to sever. Leave them out of this. They're innocent, I pleaded, glancing back at Maya and Ella, their expressions ghostly, mere silhouettes of their former selves. Innocent? His laughter was a cruel note against the darkened street. Everyone has secrets, and I suspect theirs are just as juicy as yours. Are you willing to pay the price to find out? I shoved the panic down, masking it with resolve. Hurt them and I won't hurt them, he interrupted, the feigned sincerity keenly backlit by menace. I have my uses for them. But you? You're of no use to me aside from the truths you carry. Maya's hand tightened around mine, a palpable shift of strength that pushed me to face him. What truths? She asked, the tremor in her voice unmistakable but filled with a touch of defiance that stirred my heart. Malcolm's gaze flicked between us, a storm of secrets crackling in the air. Your past is all but a curse, James. The blood that flows through your veins carries tales that would shatter lives if brought to light like the shattered pieces of that photograph on the balcony just moments ago. What was once lost will be found. In that moment, an intensifying dread gripped me, the pieces of his words fell together like a jigsaw threatening to reveal the ugliest face of the past. What do you mean? I demanded, my voice tense. His smirk grew, but it was the fire behind his eyes that truly terrified me. You seek the connections because you believe they shield you. But sometimes, they can only condemn. The past isn't done with you yet. Before I could comprehend the full weight of his insinuation, a piercing scream rippled down the alley, a sound that reverberated through the fragile air of our confrontation. Another bystander had been caught in Malcolm's grasp, another innocent sketching the depths of his ambitions. Instinctively, I stepped closer to Maya and Ella, protection surging through me like a surge of electricity. Suddenly, I heard footsteps approaching, quickened, hurried, struggling against the night. A man burst into the alley, eyes wide in panic. The woman, the one on the balcony. She's collapsed. A collective gasp rose from our midst, Malcolm momentarily distracted by the unfolding chaos. The urgency in the man's voice struck a chord deep within me. Amid the shadows awaited a moment that could turn tides if I chose to seize it. Now! I shouted, adrenaline surging, and felt a flicker of hope bloom in my chest. We need to help her. The surprise behind me was palpable, but I pulled Maya and Ella closer, an invisible thread of resolve binding us. Against the darkness. Are you out of your mind? Maya whispered urgently, her eyes darting back toward Malcolm, who now seemed stalled, his malevolence held at bay by the unexpected distraction. It's our chance. I hissed, glancing over just as the man turned again, urging us to hurry, gesturing frantically towards the balcony where the figure pleaded beneath shadows. One hesitant heartbeat passed, and in unison, we surged toward him, a unit bound by defiance and the faint light of hope battling against the ink of dread. But as we neared, a gnarled hand shot out from the gathering gloom, a reminder that shadows came in forms we couldn't anticipate. Malcolm recovered, his presence once more looming ominously behind us, the truth of betrayal woven into the very fabric of the night. Don't you dare turn your back on me, James, he warned, the threat resonating like an omen in the air. A feeling of despair gripped my heart as our human instincts clashed with the cruel realities of our fate. I could feel it, the fraying edge of loyalty and love digging against my very soul. There was so much to uncover, and the past was insistent in its reclamation, and then, something clicked, a revelation sparked in the bittersweet haze of impending doom. Hidden within the history Malcolm hinted at, perhaps was the key to turning this tide back in our favor. My sacrifice not just of truth, but love began to scorn the precipice of loyalty as I could feel the darkness tumbling forth, amid the storm brewing. A voice within me whispered fiercely, insistent to confront the ghosts even as they threatened to consume us. I would gladly face whatever consequences lay ahead for Maya and Ella, but Malcolm's eyes narrowed, sensing my resolve and igniting an unrelenting darkness that was just beginning. What are you willing to lose? He called after us, the chilling finality urging me to question how far I was prepared to go to protect the lives I cherished. His words swirled in the air, the shadows clawing at my conscience, and I realized with electric clarity that the greatest battle had just begun, and I was hurtling headlong into a reckoning where love and familial legacy both stood to be irrevocably transformed. As I sprinted toward the chaos unfolding on the balcony, every fragment of my being wrestled with the weight of Malcolm's taunts echoing in my mind. The shadows pressed against me, threatening to swallow my resolve whole, but the screams of urgency from the woman below pushed adrenaline through my veins. Maya and Ella followed closely, their presence anchoring my fraying courage in the tempest I felt rising from every direction. "We can't get caught, James," Maya panted, glancing back at Malcolm, who was regaining his composure far too quickly. "We won T. Just keep moving," I urged, feeling a growing determination flicker against my anxiety. If I could just reach the woman, if we could help her, then perhaps there would be a chance to unravel whatever sinister link Malcolm had with my past. That we reached the edge of the balcony where the woman lay crumpled against the wooden railing, her face pale and eyes fluttering. A crowd had gathered below, but no one dared to approach her. Some were too afraid of Malcolm's presence lingering in the air like a storm cloud, while others remained still, caught in the shock of witnessing her collapse. That I knelt beside her, brushing a delicate hand against her forehead. She was burning up, and I felt panic bubble within me. "Stay with us," I whispered, forcing urgency into my voice. "We're going to help you, just hold on." I was aware that behind us, Malcolm was not just a witness but a puppet master, eyes gleaming with the twisted thrill of the struggle forcing me to confront everything I had sought to escape. "Ella, get me something, anything," I called back, urgency overpowering fear. She swiftly rummaged through the crowd, desperate to find a way to help as Maya steadied me near the woman. Malcolm's laughter sliced through the tension, a cruel reminder that I was caught within a far more dangerous game. "You think you're saving her?" he sneered, stepping closer. "This is just the beginning, James. You'll unleash the true monsters from your past." Ignoring him, I focused on the woman before me. "Can you hear me? What's your name?" My voice was barely above a whisper. I needed her to cling to me, to fight against whatever darkness was closing in around her. Maria," she stammered, her voice so fragile it cracked like glass. Tears sheened her eyes, and for a moment, the veil of dread lifted as she searched for something familiar in my gaze. "What's happening?" "It's okay, Maria," I assured her, though the uncertainty clawed at my confidence. "We're going to get you out of this." A flash of guilt surged within me, the potent reminder that my fight had only begun, and here I was, unable to part the heavy fog hanging over my own life while trying to save another. My heart pounded against my ribcage as I fought the panic creeping in. The fleeting spark of hope flitted through the crowd as Ella returned, holding a small bottle of water. "It's all I could find," she breathed, her face flushed with anxiety. "Thank you," I murmured, taking it from her. I gently lifted Maria's head and guided the bottle to her lips. "Sip this, just a little." As she drank, I felt a shift within the crowd. People began to murmur, one voice rising above the rest. "We can't let him control us." It was a woman, standing firm against Malcolm's looming shadow. For the first time, I sensed that the tide was subtly turning. Resistance sparked like fireflies in the dark, a kindled hope igniting something I thought I'd lost. Yet, just as my spirits began to lift, a chilling voice broke through the moment like ice. "How noble of you, James. But saving the one does not erase the sins of the many." It was Malcolm again, his words laced with venom. "The truth is relentless. The people you've chosen to protect are tied to your past in ways you cannot even fathom." The weight of his words bore down on me, but I couldn't waver now. "No. They are not part of this." I shot back defiantly, though uncertainty threatened to upend my certainty. His smirk returned, its cruelty undeniable. "Tied by blood, tied by secrets, this woman, your precious friends, even your heart. You're standing on the precipice of revelation, and I wonder if you're ready for the fall." Maria gasped, eyes widening as if she sensed the impending doom surrounding us. "James, those people, they're not just bystanders. They're part of this." A scream cut through the night, echoing off the buildings like a siren. I turned, the world spinning as I saw a young girl on the periphery of the crowd, the one who had been watching, had always been watching. She clutched a photograph in her trembling hands, a photograph I recognized all too well. It was a picture of a family I had believed to be lost forever, my past colliding with my present in a catastrophic reunion. My breath caught, emotions spiraling. No, it can't be. The realization swelled within me that the choices I had made, the road I'd carved free from Malcolm's grasp, was about to rupture entirely. As I looked back at Maya and Ella, I saw shadows of fear flit across their faces, reflections of the uncertainty clawing at my heart. Would their love be enough to withstand what was coming? Malcolm's laughter rang out, triumphant and vicious. Game on, James. Let the truth set you free or bind you forever. The revelation loomed larger than life, a grotesque shadow eclipsing everything I thought I understood about family, love, and sacrifice. And as my hope flickered and sputtered amid the chaos, the only thing I knew for certain was that the battle had only just begun, teetering on the brink of a darkness that threatened to consume us all. The crowd shifted uneasily, their murmurs intertwining with the chaotic symphony of fears and revelations. My gaze was locked on the girl, her wide eyes filled with a mix of recognition and horror, as if she too had been thrust onto the precipice of some terrible understanding. Maya stepped forward, her hand gripping my arm tightly, grounding me in a moment that felt unfathomably vast. James, is that? She began, but the words faded into a soft gasp as I felt the weight of the photograph hovering over us like a storm cloud. The little girl's trembling hands lifted the photograph higher, revealing its contents to the crowd, a family gathered around a younger version of me, laughter and light filling a moment I thought was lost forever. Yet the crack in my heart deepened as I noticed the woman beside me, my mother, smiling serenely, blissfully unaware of the turmoil that fate would weave around us. Why do you have that? My voice escaped like a whisper, choked with disbelief. I took a step closer, absorbing the truth contained within that faded snapshot, wrestling with memories that clawed at the hidden corners of my mind. The girl clutched the photograph to her chest, her voice breaking the silence that wrapped around us like a shroud. I found it in my father's things. He never told me much. Just that you were, she faltered, pressing her lips together as if to seal away the truth that shone in her eyes. Malcolm's laughter cut through my stream of confused thoughts. Beautiful, isn't it? The threads of your history woven back into your present. Family secrets, mixed blood, and lost legacies waiting to be unearthed. You've brought this upon yourself, James. You were never meant to escape. Not one to let his words tether my heart to despair, I shouted back, enough. You don't get to dictate my story, Malcolm. My entire being ignited with defiance, yearning for a chance to confront the truth that seemed poised on the brink of destruction. The girl lowered her eyes, her voice trembling as she stepped forward tentatively. I just wanted to find you. I thought maybe we could understand what happened. People always talk about the past, but I've never known. As her words trailed off, an unexpected and fierce sense of connection blossomed between us, how two souls could be tied together by something far beyond our immediate grasp. I dove into those dark waters of vulnerability, my heart twisting with an ugly mix of fear and hope. What was your name? Lily, she answered, and the name landed like a feather, tethering me momentarily to a bond we had yet to explore. I wanted to rush into the warmth of her presence but felt the suffocating grip of Malcolm's chaos pulling at the edges of my resolve. Your father is part of all of this. He did things, terrible things, I said, feeling the truth tremble against the walls of my heart, both for her sake and for my own. Is that why my mother left? She whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. I've always wondered. I searched for you because I thought you'd have the answers. But now my heart ached for her, an unshed echo of my own childhood memories thrumming through me, filled with stifled questions and a yearning for connection. There was something painfully familiar about the pain etched across her features, about the very essence of lost families clawing at hope. Lily, I began, but Malcolm's voice sliced through the fragile moment once more, his tone tainted with conspiratorial delight. You think you can protect her, James? These bonds don't hold against the truth. You're all just players in the game, and the pieces are starting to shift. Maya and Ella backed away slightly, their fear palpable as a chill raced through the air. My voice wavered, yet I held Lily's gaze, each heartbeat between us a silent declaration of shared pain. You're not a player, you're family. Whatever secrets lie buried, we'll face them together. You don't have to be alone. But just as I reached for her, Malcolm produced a sinister smile that tightened my gut. Let us see how strong that promise is, shall we? With a flick of his wrist, he unleashed a flurry of shadows around us, chaos breaching the bubble of hope I had dared to build. People screamed, some scrambling to escape the encroaching darkness, while others froze in place as the shadows twisted and coiled around them, pulling them toward an unseen abyss. My heart raced, panic coursing through me at the sight of people getting dragged into the depths of the chaos, their cries echoing like a haunting melody. James! Maya yelled, her voice a lifeline that pierced through the growing torment. I could see the terror on her face, mingled with warmth, the strength we had built among ourselves dimmed by uncertainty. Stay close! I shouted, my heart pounding with an urgency that screamed for action. We'll find a way. Together. But the shadows encircled me, thick and consuming, pulling me into a whirlpool of despair. In the haze, I felt Lily's hand slip from mine, her frightened eyes swallowed by darkness. James! She cried, a sound that shattered something within me, propelling me forward as everything began to fracture. Malcolm's laughter echoed around us like a haunting refrain. You wanted to unravel your past, James. Here it is, a tapestry woven by sorrow and secrets. Grab hold of your family, if you dare. My heart raced, a tumultuous whirlwind of emotions swirling within me as everything I loved hung in the balance. I would not succumb to his machinations. With a desperate cry, I plunged into the chaos, determined to seize our destiny from the jaws of a darkness that sought to claim it all. As I fought against the icy grip of despair, the last image seared into my mind was Lily's terrified gaze, two hearts entwined by blood yet splintered by a harrowing journey that had only begun. And as the shadows loomed closer, an unfamiliar chill shot through me, and I could only wonder, would I have the strength to save her, to confront whatever truths molded our fates? I fought against the shadows, the darkness thrumming like an angry heartbeat, clawing at me with insidious fingers that sought to pull me into despair. Panic gripped me as I felt the tendrils of chaos overwhelm my senses, the screams of the crowd blending into a distorted cacophony that echoed in my ears. I had barely regained any footing, and yet every step forward seemed to lead me deeper into the web Malcolm had woven, every exposed truth threatening to collapse around me. James! Maya's voice broke through my disarray, a beacon in the void. I turned toward her, seeing desperation reflected in her eyes, and yet I could feel the warmth of Ella beside me, grounding my spiraling thoughts. They were here. They were with me. No. We have to find Lily. I shouted, my voice fighting against the oppressive weight of Malcolm's laughter that seemed to dance around us. In that moment, the pieces of my family converged, sweeping together in a desperate dance against the chaos. Together. Ella urged, her resolve a lifeline. We were tied through the remnants of our love, through bonds that whispered tales of sacrifice and resilience. I could not abandon Lily. Family was more than blood, it was the promise to hold one another in our darkest hours. Stay close. I commanded again, my heart pounding wildly as I led the way, pushing against the advancing waves of shadows threatening to encapsulate us. The darkness writhed, and in those moments where the light flickered like an expiring flame, I remembered why I had to fight. I wasn't just clawing for my own sanity, I was carving out a space of security for those I cherished. Lily! I called out again, desperation tinging my voice as we moved deeper into the turmoil. The shadows snarled, twisting as if alive, echoes of grief beating like drums against the silence. When had it all come to this? But as I forged ahead, following the sound of her frightened cries, a glimmer of hope flickered in my chest. Even in darkness, love cast its own light. Suddenly, I spotted her through the tumult, curled against the base of a lamppost, where the shadows fought to claim her but hesitated in the glow. Lily! I surged toward her, urgency swelling within me like a tide. The shadows recoiled as I reached her, her terrified gaze reflecting the fear and confusion swirling within our encroach upon reality. "James," she sobbed, and my heart twisted painfully with the connection we shared. Her innocence was tainted by the urgency of the mundane meeting the horrific. I reached her, wrapping her in my arms, a protective fortress against the encroaching darkness. "I'm here. We're going to get you out of this. Just stay with me." Just as I pulled her close, a bellowing laugh from the distance echoed like thunder, rolling through our sanctuary of hope. "You think you can simply take what's mine?" Malcolm's taunts filled the air, his shadow looming larger as he approached, eyes gleaming with malevolence. "He doesn't own us," I shouted defiantly, stepping forward with Lily still tucked safely beside me. "I will not let your shadows claim what light you intend to extinguish." In that moment, a shift washed over the crowd. The murmurings turned to murmurs of solidarity, whispers of revolt against the impending tide. My mind raced as one hopeful truth mingled with another: we were not alone. Our fight was for every single person caught in Malcolm's web, every shadow yearning to reclaim their light. "Stand with us," I urged the onlookers, taking another step forward, my heart beating heavily against the drum of the night. "This is our fight. Together, we are stronger than the darkness that threatens to overshadow us." Encouraged, small voices began to rise, and Ella stepped alongside me, her spirit intertwining with mine, illuminating our surroundings with the raw power of hope. "We stand together," she proclaimed, her eyes sparkling with a strength I had always admired. With the flicker of newfound courage lighting the path, I turned back to Malcolm, who seemed taken aback by our rallying spirit. "You will not break us," I said, my voice steady, fiercer than ever before. "We will uncover the truth behind our past, and we will show you the depths of our love." And as I spoke those words, a surge of brightness erupted from the crowd, a tether weaving each of us together in a bind thicker than blood. The shadows recoiled in response, as if aware that their hold was slipping. Malcolm's smirk faltered, twisted into something more menacing. "Family shadows run deep, but you may have stumbled upon a truth far darker than any light can expose," he hissed, his voice reverberating off the walls with unnatural malice. "But we'll see who stands in the end." In that fleeting moment, the shadows slipped from their grasp more openly. The people around me became my armor, love and commitment fueling our every move. We were bound in this struggle, and every ounce of joy, pain, and memory surged through the pulse of our collective defiance against the chaos that threatened to consume us. That I took a breath, directing my attention back to Lily, who peered up at me with wide, trusting eyes, her innocence still intact. "Whatever darkness he intends to unleash," I whispered softly, "no shadow can suffocate the love we choose to fight for. We fight for love." And as those words left my lips, the luminous light encircling us intensified. With every heartbeat, every breath, I could feel the shadows retreat, their menacing hold trembling beneath the weight of hope and unity unfurling like a shield before us. The confrontation escalated not just against Malcolm but against the very shadows he embodied. The truth of family legacies surged like a storm, bringing forth bittersweet revelations as our newfound bonds began to reshape the very fabric of our story. With that, we charged forward, ready to claim our truth against the luminous essence that surged between us. I felt it, the resonance of love, the glimmer of possibilities. I fought for the chance to weave my lost family into a new legacy, intertwining heartbeats and bloodlines that were no longer fraught with betrayal and sorrow. Together, we cried out as one, a chorus of resilience echoed against the tide. I could hear the echoes of laughter interwoven with memories breaking free, whispering of forgiveness and understanding in fragmented hues, but just as the light surged to envelop us in safety, Malcolm's laughter sliced through the hopeful harmony, blue flames igniting in his eyes. "It won't end here, James. The stories that bind you will haunt you until your final breath." The shadows surged once again, stretching outward to reclaim their darkness. As I clutched Lily to my side, squeezing her reassuringly, I felt a revitalizing surge of power rise within us. Love was not merely a weapon, It was our sanctuary, a truth that would guide our way into whatever storm awaited. With a final push, we advanced against the darkness together, our arms linked as one. I found solace in every face beside me, knowing our fight was worth it for family, for love, and for the promise of a new dawn. In that fearless sprint through the chaos, I felt conviction solidifying. Chains that darkened our past were now being broken. The lingering shadows began to fade, our light pulling us forward until I realized there was no separating us from our battle. There was no fear, no regret, just the palpable echo of one message that resounded from our hearts: love conquers all. And as our unity surged against the tide of malevolence, a thought twinkled bright, a truth I had finally unearthed amid the chaos: the legacy of my family wasn't just one of darkness, it was a choice, a chance to carve a new path, to forgive the ghosts, embrace the light, and ultimately forge a future that would shine brightly against the fallout of our intertwined destinies. As we broke free from the shadows, a single thought remained ringing true. My heart thrummed with an indomitable strength, defiantly whispering, "In love, we trust." And somehow, that truth felt like a rebirth, a promise igniting beneath the dawn's twinkling light. Standing together, we faced our futures, forever bound in the radiant glow of hope, a light unwavering, fiery, and bright.